Presenting the PR Maven podcast, hosted by Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven, targeted at business leaders who want to merge the best techniques of traditional networking with the best new platforms and technologies to engage your target audience, build your network, and grow your brand and business. The podcast is sponsored by Marshall Communications, Maine-based, globally connected. As we get ready for another great episode, remember, you can always connect with Nancy and other listeners on the PR Maven Nation group page on Facebook. Now, here's your host, Nancy Marshall.
Hello, PR Maven Nation. Welcome to one of our on-the-road editions of the PR Maven podcast. This is episode number 41, presented by Marshall Communications, creator of the Marshall Plan 65-Step Strategic Process. This week we are recording live from the Maine Coast Heritage Trust Maine Land Conservation Conference. For those of you who are new to the show, and those of you who are here in our live audience, I want to welcome you. And for those of you who are loyal listeners, I want to thank you for coming back. The podcast provides unique perspectives on the world of public relations and personal branding, including what I hope will be actionable takeaways. I want to emphasize the importance of enhancing traditional relationship building with today's new technology. And every week, the podcast features interviews with successful industry leaders, top executives, and media personalities from around the globe. To everyone here in the audience and listening online, I want to welcome you. And this presentation is called 12 Steps to Your Personal Brand. I want to start with the first step. The first step in any personal branding process is called discovery. To define your personal brand, it helps to do some introspective thinking. How would you like people to describe you? What are your own personal strengths and skills? Would people think of you, for example, as a hard worker, or as detail-oriented, or as creative? I know people think of me as enthusiastic, and that's my defining characteristic. I bring my enthusiasm into whatever I do. What do you bring to whatever you do? That's something worth thinking about. The second step is a personal brand manifesto, and that is your own unique story told in a compelling manner and epitomizing all the characteristics, qualities, and beliefs that make you stand out. This is your own story. It's a combination of your biography, plus your personal beliefs and convictions. Many of you who are here believe in the preservation of land so we can have a sustainable environment for generations to come. That personal conviction should be part of your personal brand manifesto. I welcome you to take a look at my LinkedIn profile, Nancy Marshall on LinkedIn, and you can see the summary section that I wrote, which actually goes back to my ancestry in Germany and my great-grandfather, who was a train station master. And I used his story as part of my own personal brand manifesto. And that summary section of LinkedIn is a great place for you to put your personal brand manifesto as well. The third step is a communications audit. So what images, articles, or videos of you are out there online telling your brand story? See what exists now. How do you show up in a Google search? You might want to set up a Google News alert for your name and or your organization's name so you can see what's appearing online about you and your brand. If you go to google.com/alerts, you can set up news alerts so you can see everything that shows up online about you and your brand on an ongoing basis. Number 4 is to create a strategy. In order to accomplish any big goal in life, you need to start with a plan. So this plan would be a detailed step-by-step strategy in order to communicate your personal brand and especially to connect with your targeted audiences. The 5th step is to do media training, and this will help you to seem natural and believable in front of a video camera. It's amazing to me how many people are really natural when there's no cameras around, and then as soon as you turn on a video camera, they turn into some kind of a mysterious person that you've never met before. So you want to show up exactly online and in front of the camera the way you do naturally in person. And in order to do this, you need to rehearse and practice in front of the mirror first, and then in front of a video camera. You need to play back the video just like you would if you were a professional athlete, so you can detect if you have any kind of a nervous tic or body language that might take away from your message. For example, do you play with your hair without even knowing it? Or do you pick at your fingernails? Or do you twist your mustache? Do you have any kind of quirky things that are distracting and take away from the real messages? If you do, try to correct those by practicing so that you can show up completely natural when you're on the camera. We're going to take a little break now, but I just want to remind you that we're recording live today at the Maine Coast Heritage Trust Maine Land Conservation Conference. And we're expanding PR Maven Nation to include our live audience. Right now, we're going to take a quick break and come back in just a moment with more on the PR Maven podcast.
Hey PR Maven Nation, Greg here from Marshall Communications. I want to talk about your marketing strategy. Some days do you feel like you're a hamster running in a wheel? Perhaps you're just running the same ad in the same publication because that's the way you've always done it. Or do you not even know how many media impressions you got from that news story last month? Do you feel like sometimes you're doing a lot of work but not seeing the results? Well, the good news is you're not a hamster. And if you're feeling like your marketing plan could be better, we would love to help. At Marshall Communications, we worked with a wide range of businesses and organizations to create a customized marketing strategy known as the Marshall Plan. During a period of 3 months, we meet with you and your top stakeholders to learn about your world, what keeps you up at night, and best of all, the ways we can work together to combine your knowledge and our marketing and public relations experience to avoid the feeling of spinning in a wheel, and create a 3-year marketing plan that provides you with a vision for success. The Marshall Plan is fully customized and uses our 65 proprietary steps and leads to a playbook for your success. And trust me, it feels so much better than running around in a wheel. Now, it's a great time to get your business going, grow your business, increase your profits, and most importantly, measure your results. If you think your business or organization would be a candidate for a Marshall Plan, you can take our Marshall Plan quiz to find out. Visit marshallpr.com/quiz, and if you'd like to schedule a free consultation about a Marshall Plan, visit marshallpr.com/consult or call us at 207-623-4177. Be sure to mention the code PODCAST for your free gift.
Okay, well, welcome back to the PR Maven podcast, and we're going to dive deeper into creating a most wanted media list. And actually, we just started working with a new client who had a whole list of media outlets where she wanted to have her story told. And it included things like the Wall Street Journal and USA Today and even the Today Show. So that's a big aspiration, obviously. And if you're just getting started in public relations, you might want to start locally and then build up to the national. I always used to think in terms of what I call concentric circles. So if you choose the location of your land trust or your organization, and then what are the newspapers and media outlets closest into you, and try to work with those first to get feature stories, and then keep working out in concentric circles until eventually you go to the Wall Street Journal or the Today Show. But inevitably, if you were to contact the Wall Street Journal to suggest a story, while you are on the phone with that producer or editor, they're going to be Googling your organization or you or both to see what's already been published. Because as much as news people like to think they're discovering untold stories, in a way they don't. They want to know that there is some legitimacy. And actually, one thing we actually work with clients on is Wikipedia. And Wikipedia is a great place to try to show up because it's got a lot of credibility. And it's everything with news media is all about having that credibility factor that you're a real organization doing good work and real work. And whether you're very established or new, either way, you want to be sure there's media results. Now, social media is another way of communicating your brand manifesto or your key messages. And sometimes people share a lot of personal things on their Facebook, for example, or Instagram. And you want, if you may not want those things to be as findable. You may have things on your personal Facebook that you would prefer the Wall Street Journal not see if you're talking to them. So look at your privacy settings, and if you're posting a photo from a party, for example, when you might not be showing up as flattering or as professional as you want to, make sure you just set that so it's set for private, or so that only your closest friends or family can see that. So you want to be using several different social media platforms if possible, but only use as many that you can keep up with. Now, there are people who just create accounts so that they can lurk and look at others, and that's okay too, but I think it's really vital to be on LinkedIn if you're trying to communicate professionally. And LinkedIn is a really good place to start if you're a beginner at social media, because it's kind of a safe professional network. And I actually find that I get a lot of really great quality interaction on there. I write columns for Forbes.com, and every time I publish a new column, I post it on there, and I get a lot of engagement. And that's the key with social media, is to get engagement. And that means people who not only like your page, but are commenting and sharing. And again, if you're running an organization, you want to create a culture where people are sharing the social media. So again, if you're the executive director or a board member, anytime there's some news that's on one of your social platforms, all the other board members should be encouraged to share that news, because each of these social networks is going to show the posts that are getting the most engagement. If like Facebook, their algorithms are programmed to push down people or posts that are uninteresting, basically. They want to show the things that are of the most interest to the most people. So if posts are getting a lot of likes and shares and comments, Facebook is more likely to show those on your news feed. Now, a personal website is important, again, if you're trying to build your personal brand. And some people, even now when they're having babies, they're saving the URL, so the babiesname.com. Do you have experience with that, Jay?
Soon after she was with us, and we haven't used it much.
But your child?
For my child.
Good for you. Congratulations. I actually did that for my two sons also, and they haven't actually even built their sites yet, but I have the URLs just in case. And again, a lot of that has to do with making someone more findable. And you also don't want a poser to be like trying to pose as if they were you either. It's kind of scary to think about, but it happens. Especially the bigger and more notorious you are. Majora, again, in the keynote this morning, was talking about a haters group that developed around her. And I think, again, the more you try to change this world and move mountains and make a stand, more people are going to not like what you're doing because you're trying to create change. So anyway, I think having a personal website, even if you just have a one-page website with your photo and your story on there. So search engine optimization, again, this is all about that findable factor that I've been talking about. You want to be able to customize your website so that your name is findable. Now, my name, nancymarshall.com, that's already taken. There's some person in California who's sitting on it, and they're trying to sell it to me now for a lot of money because they know that I'm interested in it. And I think it's thousands and thousands of dollars. So I have the prmaven.com website with a lot of my information on it. So if you can't get your name.com, you might want to choose another URL and fill it with your information. Speaking engagements like this one are a great way, to interact both face-to-face with people and to generate online. We've got a lot of online buzz going about Greg and I being here today and about producing the PR Maven podcast here. So speaking engagements are a vital part of any PR or advertising program. And actually, even if you're doing some work locally, you still can speak at national conferences. And again, the keynote speaker here this morning, Majora, she's a perfect example. She told her story of the work she's doing in New York City, and it was relevant to all of us here in Maine because she's just had so much success. So speaking is a great way to promote your brand. Media interviews, I've talked a little bit about that already, and I encourage you to have a really good relationship with your local media. And those local journalists, the local weekly paper or local daily, they're going to be there for the long time. So it's really critical to have a good relationship with them. And, I always used to say you never win a battle with people that buy ink by the barrel. So if you have a rift of some type going on with your local media, figure out how to overcome it. Take a group from your board or your organization and go meet with that paper to try to have a good relationship, because you want to be the ones they call when they're writing about whatever issue that you're involved with. And you might get a story in a big national paper or even the Boston Globe or the Portland Press Herald occasionally, but they're not going to report about you like week after week. Whereas your local weekly paper, they're going to always be interested in what you're doing. So that relationship is really vital. When I started my career, I was working at Sugarloaf, actually, as the director of communications, and there was a local weekly paper there in Kingfield, Maine called The Irregular, and my then boss always was saying, it's really important just to always think of The Irregular first, even before you think of the Portland Press Herald or Boston Globe, because they're there to report on us all the time. So I really learned that lesson early on in my career, and I encourage people to do that now. And also, don't forget about radio. There's a lot of talk radio stations. And then podcasts. There's a lot of podcasts growing up right now that need guests and want guests. I sometimes record my podcast at a place called the Portland Pod, which is in South Portland. And there are probably 30 or 40 podcasters now that are recording podcasts. And it's an example of very niche topics. There's podcasts about like every possible topic you could ever imagine. And again, a lot of those topics would pertain to your organization. Or maybe you want to start your own podcast. Does anybody here have a podcast? Oh, well, it's something you might want to think about. It's relatively low cost, and it's a great way to be able to communicate on an ongoing basis with your key contacts and your key audiences. Written content. You can write articles. Again, opinion pieces are really important. That's a great way for you to express your opinions in the newspaper. Now, sometimes when we've worked with statewide organizations that want to have opinion pieces, we've gotten board members from different parts of the state to submit an opinion piece to their local daily paper. Because if you work for a statewide organization, every newspaper in the state won't run the same opinion piece. You need to have a customized opinion piece for every newspaper. But that doesn't mean that local people can't write. I think at one point we were working with the Nature Conservancy and we coordinated a campaign where they submitted to all the 7 daily newspapers in the state. Books, it's possible now to write and publish on Amazon.com, which is what I did with my book, which is called PR Works. And you can actually even do ebooks, which are downloadable PDFs. And you would be surprised if you take all the content that you've produced and put it together in a book. You might have content enough for a book. I do Forbes.com, but there are other online outlets that will take articles. And again, that's another way to get some online content to drive people to your brand. And I want to thank you. This is my contact information. I hope that you'll follow me on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. We're on all of the platforms, constantly expanding our network. And we're going to talk a little more now about this personal branding discovery worksheet and the message map template. But I think we're going to wrap up this edition of the PR Maven podcast now and take it to the next part of our session. PR Maven Nation, that wraps up this week's podcast. Thanks again to Donna Bissett and Jay Collier and the Maine Coast Heritage Trust Maine Land Conservation Conference for hosting our show today. And thanks to the audience at Mount Ararat Middle School for joining us today, and those of you who are listening online. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask me about, don't hesitate to email at nancy@prmaven.com. And we're going to do a giveaway of a copy of my book, PR Works, and one of our Things to Do Today pads. And all you need to do is go to prmaven.com/giveaway to enter. I just want to remind you that the podcast is presented by Marshall Communications, creator of the 65-step Marshall Plan strategic process. And to learn more about the Marshall Plan, visit marshallpr.com. Don't hesitate to check out the Marshall Communications webinar series. And for a full list of our free webinars, go to marshallpr.com/webinars. Thanks again for tuning in to the PR Maven podcast. And you can always subscribe, rate, and review by going to prmaven.com/podcast. Did you know that if you have an Alexa device, you can say, "Hey, Alexa, play the PR Maven podcast." You can also find and enable the PR Maven podcast skill in the Alexa app to get our latest flash briefings. And that's something that even I do every morning. We appreciate you listening and encourage you to share this podcast with your friends or coworkers and let them know they can find it on their favorite podcast player. Remember to keep building your relationships and embracing new technology. Have a great week, PR Maven Nation.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the PR Maven podcast. For show notes, links, and guest contact information, visit prmaven.com. If you'd like to connect with Nancy and the rest of PR Maven Nation, be sure to find our group on Facebook. We encourage you to subscribe to the podcast and share our content to bring on great guests with more information. Plus, you can also connect with your target audience, build your network, and build your brand.